Welcome to my vertical obsession. I'm your host Megan, and today we are talking about Wild Ride with the Dangerous Kian, which is on DramaBox. So, the synopsis for this is Lydia Gray, a sheltered daughter of a cop, meets Kian Wilder, the dangerous magnetic leader of the Dark Hawks, on her 18th birthday. One night of adrenaline and escape changes everything when Lydia learns that the man she's fallen for is the criminal her father has been hunting. Desire and danger collide, the line between love and ruin blurs. Can she survive this wild ride? And it stars Jameson Leah Mutz as Lydia Gray and Evan Anderson as Kian Wilder. So what this series breaks down to is that it is a series of a good girl meets bad boy and they fall in love. Now, only for the good girl's father to stop it, so the story would go that way. Now, in this case, the way the father stopped the relationship was by going after Kian's crew. The two didn't let them stop that. Lydia was willing to betray her father and all he stood for to save the boy she cared about, just like Kian was willing to give it all away when he found out that he was the one who killed Lydia's mother. He couldn't bear to cause her harm and wanted to make sure she didn't hate him. Thankfully, he was able to get the truth for both of them. Fate brought them together and helped them both get redemption and peace. It's kind of how I saw the series. So, going into each kind of character, you got Lydia, who, again, is a sheltered girl whose father was a cop, so she never really got into trouble. She ended up torn between her father's work and protecting the one person who cared about her, which was Kian. And of course she chose to protect Kian because she knew there was more to him than what, he was showing and what people made her believe. And that while he acts tough and dangerous, there was this kind soul in him. And she wanted to bring that part of him out. She tries to protect him by walking away, but realizes she's better with him and to tell him the truth that her father was a cop and trying to go after him and his gang. And when he tried to do the same, she knew he didn't mean it and wouldn't let him. She actually would refuse to walk away when he wanted to try and make it right. And just like he was protecting her, she protected him in all different ways. So it's like she could see beneath him and beneath what he was putting on for this persona that he had. He may come off dangerous and may seem like he was wild, but she knew deep down that that wasn't who he always was. That wasn't always the type of person he was. Whereas Kian's character, he acts as this dangerous criminal, but in the truth, he was thrown down a bad path. And all because his brother was greedy. This caused him to believe that he was a killer and no good. And after getting kicked out, he did what he needed to survive, which is create this dangerous criminal gang of the Nighthawks. No, the Dark Hawks. Sorry, the Dark Hawks. And, he had this whole... He was kicked out. His father kind of didn't believe he was any good, so he just kept with that notion that he was no good. People wanted to believe it, so he just went with it, creating the Dark Hawks, doing, dangerous criminal deals and stuff like that. So he kind of embraced that a little bit. Which is, you know, what I said with here, where he, you know, thought people expected it of him, so that's what he did. But he still lived by a code of honor, and yeah, he still lived by a code to honor and protect he sees as family. So those he sees as family, he would honor and protect. That's his whole code, and that was always something that he instilled in the Darkhawks motto. So when he found out he hurt Lydia, he knew she was better off without him. So he chose to give everything up for her, and that he had rather been in jail than hurt Lydia, and when he found out that he was the one who killed her mother, he wanted to make things right, and he had rather been put in jail than hurt Lydia with the truth, or have her live with this notion that the one person she loved was the person who killed her mom, type of thing. So, and he was willing to protect her in any way he could. And that's kind of how they formed this bond together, is that he wanted to protect her, she wanted to protect him, and the two just kept basically protecting each other from all these different things once they met. And I truly believe that it was one of those things where fate kind of brought them together for this, because if they had never met, you know, Kian and Lydia would never have found out the truth about what happened to Lydia's mother. Kian would have still lived with this notion and this idea that he was the one who caused that wreck, instead of the true person who did it. And Lydia would never have found out who actually killed her mom. It would have still been her father trying to figure it out and chase down who it was. So some of the things that I had noticed in this series that I wanted to talk about were when Kian was shot after a deal kind of went south, and, you know, Lydia showed up to let him know that her dad was gonna come and raid, or, you know, like ambush, sting. I think that's the right word. He was gonna come and arrest, so she was trying to prevent that from happening, but Kian ends up getting shot, and it's just, depending on how it looks and where you are in the scene and story, the gunshot changes. So it was in his shoulder. Yeah, it was in his right shoulder. And then all of a sudden it's just blood, but it doesn't look like there's a shot. And he's not, like, in pain. He's not holding it. He's not trying to put pressure on it. So it's like, did he actually get shot, or was it supposed to be just a graze? Like, how was that supposed to be? Because all of a sudden it's like, it's not that big of issue anymore, and it just, that kind of confused me, especially when, you know, he gets stopped by Lydia's father. One, there's blood on his shoulder. Lydia's father, being a cop, doesn't even ask about it. Did he even notice it? You'd think a cop would ask, why is your shoulder bleeding, or why do you have blood on your shoulder? But there was nothing to that, and I was just, that whole, you know, between the shooting and then the getting stopped, I'm just like, what in the... It was just a little far-fetched for me, that part. And I still don't understand was he shot in the shoulder, or was it just supposed to be like a graze on the shoulder? Because it never really showed anything else. There was never bandage there either, so I'm like, so was he shot, and how bad was he shot? And another thing that kind of like was a little out there for me was when Kian saved Lydia at school. So she was attacked by someone that was set up by her bully, because, you know, Kian wasn't around, so they were like, oh no, we're gonna try and stop you, and we're gonna knock you down a peg. So Kian ends up showing up and saving her, and then he ends up bringing her to his place. But the only thing is that the outfit she's wearing when she's at school is not the same outfit that she's wearing when she gets to his place. In fact, I think it's an outfit that she was wearing in a different scene prior to the school scene. So you could definitely tell that those two scenes were shot on different days because the wardrobe did not match. Or somehow the wardrobe got forgotten at what she was wearing in the scene before she was brought to Kian's place. But I noticed that, and I was like, wait a minute. 1 minute she's in this outfit, and the next she's in this, and it's supposed to be the same day. So that kind of was one thing that I was just like, another suspend reality type moment, for sure. And while I wrote it down in my notes, I'm not going to really say too much, but I wasn't truly the biggest fan of the graphics for the writing or the, you know, the car getting away scene. It was a little, I won't say cheesy, but you could definitely tell that they were graphics and, you know, special effects put in. And I know it wasn't the best, but it was still pretty good for, you know, the vertical. And I can't say too much because I know that there are some TV series that have done some graphics where you're just like, that wasn't the best. Maybe we could have done a little bit better. But I know it's all based on budget size, I believe, and how much money you have to spend on graphics and special effects. I believe that's how that works. Which is why movies tend to have better graphics and special effects, because they have bigger budgets than TV shows. Sometimes cables have bigger budget than network television, so they can do a little bit better graphics too. It's all just comes down to money in the end, I think, to be honest. But for vertical and for what they were doing, it was actually pretty well done. It wasn't the best, in my opinion. I also know that I couldn't do any better, so there is that. Because special effects is not something that I've ever really been good at. I've tried it, I've dabbled in it, but never been really good. And then the other little thing I had is not a performance, but the one thing when it comes to, and the last thing that I have, and while it's not like a performance or a note on the series at all, it's just one thing I have when it comes to Evan in his roles is he has these gorgeous hair, and I love getting to see it. And I was so upset when it was just like slicked back in this series. I was so glad when it wasn't slicked back the whole time, because when it first was like that, I was like, please, please don't be like this the whole time. Just let his hair flow, because he has such gorgeous hair. And sometimes that like slick back look, for me, just does not look good. And that's just from personal opinion, but I was just glad that it was not for the full thing. And I know it's silly, it's very silly, but I don't know, it's just, when men have long hair and it's just flowing, it just looks so gorgeous. And sometimes, like, the man bun is amazing as well, but it's just like that slicked back look. For me, it just, I don't know, it doesn't look good. But that's a personal preference. So, overall, you know, I really enjoyed the series. I thought it was fun. It was a mystery. It was kind of interesting, and it had its moments where you're like, wait, what's going to happen? How's this all going to work out? I mean, I definitely kind of clocked from the start that Kian wouldn't have been the one to kill Lydia's mom, but he's still gonna think that he did. And especially when the brother kind of told the story of how it all happened, I was like, yeah, that's definitely not how it happened, and that's so suspicious. And of course, it turned out to be right, that it wasn't the truth. But it was just kind of a cute story. Reading over my notes. Yeah, it was also something that I kind of didn't envision when I was watching the trailer and reading the synopsis for it, because the way I kind of visioned it was that Kian was in his family business and that his family was in the mafia, and he was just kind of continuing that going forward. So to watch it and see it be something a little bit completely different is always interesting and fun for me, because the way I envision it, or at least the story and the plot based on the trailer and the synopsis, is always one thing, and I think it's going to go one way, and how it's all going to happen, only for it to be a completely different story and a completely different plot than what my brain has made up. And I love that when that happens, because you always kind of see things one way, and if it, you know, goes that way, yeah, it's enjoyable and you can watch it, but to have it be completely different and you sit there and go, wait, that's not how I thought it was gonna go, it makes things a little bit more intriguing and more fun and likable, and it just a bit more suspenseful in a way. So I was kind of happy to know that how I envisioned it is not how it all went down. I really did enjoy the story. I love how it ended and how they, you know, got to be together. They were able to find out the truth and put the real killer of Lydia's mother behind bars. And, you know, Kian was found to not be the one to kill her mother. So it was, you know, nice little wrap up in the end. And it also helped to the ending prove that Kian wasn't the bad seed. You know, everything that he was shown to be, especially to his father, was not who he actually was. So it was really nice to see that as well. But this has been, you know, a wild ride with the Dangerous Kian. My rating on this, as I've mentioned, going at character, atmosphere, writing, plot, pacing, intrigue, and likability for all the subnotes, it comes down to a 7.5 out of 10 for a rating. And I mean, I would still totally recommend this because it was cute. Plus, I love Evan. I love his work. I have seen many of his series, and I'm always happy to watch a new one when he's in it. I know he has a bunch of interactive ones on Real Short, and I've always kind of watched those when I can. But like I said, this was a wild ride with Dangerous Kian. It's on DramaBox. I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well, and what you might have liked about the series. And if there was anything you kind of noticed, but maybe someone else didn't, and it was something you didn't like or maybe questioned. Love to hear your thoughts. So, let me know. This has been my vertical obsession. I'm your host, Megan, and until next time.